Hey, how's it going? So you've just arrived at Oslo Luften Airport. Probably saying that completely wrong. The airport has changed its name since I was last there. It's my mission now to get to the center of Oslo and just let's see how easy it is. Let's go. Super easy airport, really. You just follow the signs for the train. Very clean airport. This is Norway. Everything's very clean.
Well, welcome to another one of my videos. Just a heads up, but this video is a little bit all over the place. Premise behind this video, I flew into Oslo literally for just over 24 hours. I was there to catch up with some people, so I flew in. I wanted to explore. I wanted to explore a city that I know very well. I wanted to see what had changed. And once again, I'm bringing you, my subscriber, along with me. So I really appreciate you joining me. There are parts of this video that are way too windy for audio, so when I'm speaking, I think I'm going to be dubbing over those parts. Just a heads up, because trying to hear me over the chilly Norwegian wind is very difficult. Hence the reason I'm using this microphone now to speak to you just like this. The first thing you'll notice all over Norway is how clean everything is. This is a very rich country, so they have the ability to clean things up, but two, they have a population that on the whole mostly respects the environment that they're living in. And very fast, efficient, comfortable trains, as you can see. The journey to the centre generally takes about 30 minutes. It is probably the best way to get from the airport to the centre. Don't waste your time getting a taxi.
6.5 hours later.
I'm studying on the west side of the city. I've just rocked up. It's 7:30 in the morning. It's still dark. And the sun doesn't come up until late in the winter. I've just got my ticket here. Ticket cost about, I think it costs 35, which is about £3.50, about $4.20 or so. And I'm going to get the tram or the bus, depending on which one turns up first. Hopefully it's the tram, because the tram is a little bit of a nicer mode of transport. I'm going to head to the Opera House, a nice sort of starting point for like reliving and seeing what's changed in Oslo since I was last here some 5 years ago now. Just over 5 years ago was the last time I was here. I started early because I'm having a lunch with a friend and then I'm having dinner with a friend, so I don't know how much time I'm going to have to sort of see all the sites, but if you can join me, that would be amazing. So Oslo has a lot of public transport. One of the public transports that I would recommend taking is the tram. This is the tram. It's a good way to get around. Use Google Maps if you need to get around Oslo.
I'll be honest, it was strange to be back in Oslo, but at the same time I was excited. Obviously I go and look at some of the tourist spots in Oslo. The tiger that you just saw there was installed in the year 2000 to commemorate the 1000 year anniversary of Oslo. The city is known as the Tiger City. As it was so early, I hadn't had breakfast yet, so I headed straight to Central Station looking for something to eat, realizing ridiculous prices, so I went straight for the nearest supermarket as I was on my own. Solo travelers don't need to impress anyone.
One thing you'll notice about Norway, things are not cheap in Norway. Despite the fact the currency has depreciated recently, things are still expensive. For example, Haribo, $52.90, that's about £5. So $6.50 or so, some Haribo. I think they put sugar tax on things, trying to make things like this a little bit healthier. But it's not a cheap country, but the Norwegians are incredibly well paid, and the Norwegians don't mind. But this is your typical Norwegian supermarket, co-op in fact.
See, on the travel channel they show you the exotic, I show you supermarkets and escalators.
Wow, this has had an upgrade. So obviously since last time I was here, this didn't exist. This is part of the main central station, and it's had a huge upgrade. Previously this was all that was here. This is all new. They made it quite pretty, but shockingly, just up those escalators over there, just to give you an idea of how expensive the city is, the toilets are 20 kroners, that's £2, that's about $2.40, $2.50 depending on the exchange rate. That's a expensive pee. But what do you expect? It's Norway. Everything is spotlessly clean. One of Europe's cleanest countries. Neck and neck with Switzerland, both very wealthy countries. Although, maybe I'm going to show you where it's a little bit more dodgy. Symbolism of one of my favorite gods, Thor's hammer. Very, very large, very new version of Thor's hammer. Quite like it.
Sadly, the day I decided to spend 24 hours in Oslo happened to be an incredibly windy day, and that wind that you just heard has ruined most of my footage. The footage right here, if I was to turn the volume up, you would switch this video off straight away if you already haven't. But then again, you wouldn't be listening to this if you've already switched the video off, so there's going to be a lot of times in this video where I'm simply going to speak over. Oslo isn't the prettiest of Norwegian cities, far from it. There are far prettier cities, pretty much spaced out all over the amazing country that is Norway. However, one of the most iconic buildings in Oslo is this, the Oslo Opera House. Not quite as famous as the Sydney Opera House, but equally as impressive inside. And you know what? I bet a damn sight more Norwegians attend this opera house than Australians attend the Sydney Opera House. I mean, how many times have you heard an Australian talk about the opera?
So here we are, we're at Oslo's Opera House. Notice how dark it is, notice how empty it is. The sun hasn't even come up yet, and it's about 9 o'clock in the morning. And the water is frozen over there. The seagulls are walking along the ice. It's super windy. As soon as I come away from this sort of sheltered spots here, which is effectively the little shop, and inside is the entrance to the Opera House. So the Opera House, it opened in 2008. What's interesting, I first came to Oslo in 2007, and then literally from 2007, 2008 onwards, I was hooked for at least 5 years. Wow. So it's been longer since I was here. It's been a long time since I was in Oslo. Not much has changed. These buildings are all new. Let's go and have a look.
I have to admit, it was slightly strange coming to the realization that I was last in Oslo in 2013. It felt more recent than that, so that was the strange realization as I stood next to the magnificent Opera House. I had the pleasure of visiting the Oslo Opera House for a magnificent performance when I was full-time in Oslo. I urge you, if you do get the opportunity to buy tickets to the Norwegian National Opera or the ballet, I highly recommend it. What's remarkable about this building, supposedly, it contains 1,100 rooms and has a total area of 49,000 square meters. It's an incredibly big building, and it's Norway's largest cultural building ever constructed. I'm actually surprised at how quiet Oslo was at this time of the day. This is me suggesting that my only company right now are these seagulls around me, because literally at sometime just after 9 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday, nobody was around, and all I had for company was seagulls. I have to admit, I didn't mind them. I'm quite a fan of seagulls. I think seagulls get a bad press. Yes, they're noisy birds. Yes, they can steal your food when you're by the beach or even in a city like Oslo. But you know what? For me, they have a certain charm about them. And in the same way, I have this comforting feeling when I see pigeons, because you see pigeons all over the world. I also have a comforting feeling when I see seagulls. So I like seagulls. So rather than cut this footage, I figured it's best to dub over this once again. The reason nobody's out on the streets right now is because it's so damn cold. The only insane person to be out in Oslo is this crazy Englishman. And what I'm trying to tell the camera is that Oslo has these electric scooters, similar to what you see in Paris, similar to what you see in Berlin, you name it, they're all over the place. And cities where you find them, you'll see them scattered around pavements, which is great if you need a scooter, but which is not so good if you like to keep pavements in order. However, it's a good way to get around any city, especially if you need to get somewhere very quick.
It's really strange. It's 9:30, 9:40 in the morning on a Saturday. Everywhere I've been, deserted.
And once again, the wind picks up and you can see the paper behind me blowing in my direction, which basically illustrates it is a windy day. What I'm trying to explain here is I spent many winters in Oslo, and what I found very strange was this is January and there's no snow. There had been maybe a couple of days of snow during the pre-Christmas period, but the reality is I think climate change is having a massive impact on the whole planet. Oslo is a prime example. Gone are the white winters. Now we just have these grey, dark, wet winters. Yes, it's cold, but the snow is less frequent than it used to be. I remember winters when the temperature was minus 25. Today may be cold, but it certainly wasn't anywhere near minus 25. It was a few degrees under.
It is a bit strange, isn't it? Saturday morning. One person in the coffee shop. I'm basically heading between the centre and up towards Grünerløkka. I'm seeing all these changes. When I used to be here many moons ago, this side used to be what I would call a little bit dodgy, and they've spruced it up. What's really strange, that was boarded up in 2007, 2008, all the way up to 2013, and it's still boarded up. There's some lights on which suggest they might be doing some work, but this is kind of the main square in Grünerløkka. A lot of bars in this square. I remember, this is strange. It's like going over my old stomping ground, but in the morning rather than the night time. Some good bars around here. Massively overpriced bars, but I'm going to head up this street just to see. Well, I'm kind of hoping there's going to be a market on or something at the top, but judging by the fact that everyone has vanished from Oslo, we shall see. It's really strange. A lot of fond memories on this street. Sunday strolls, Saturday strolls, just out and about. And here I am now, and it's empty. And this square on a weekend, and today is a weekend, today is a Saturday, I'm presuming now only Sundays, but tell me I'm completely wrong. But back in the day, this whole space used to be market. People would bring their sort of antiques, their sort of random sort of bric-a-brac. An interesting place to walk through. I presume this still goes on a Sunday. Problem is I'm leaving Sunday morning, so I'm not really going to see it. But you get the chance, and it still does exist. And then people come back to Oslo. Despite the fact that this is Europe's fastest growing city, everyone is sleeping. It's very strange. See? I don't know if you can see the clock over there, but it's almost 10 o'clock.
As I stare up into the air, I notice my only company for this adventure so far has been this amazing flock of seagulls.
Thankfully I haven't been shat on yet. But always reminded me of England, this. This has been here for a long time. Sort of looks like Stonehenge, but not quite. One stone. Interesting. When the traffic quietens down a little bit, proves there's a little bit of life now. You can tell that the sun has pretty much emerged just after 10 o'clock. You walk along the bank here, up the hill. Nice romantic walk actually, but because I'm not feeling too romantic, I'm not going to be walking that way. I'm going to go curve back round into the city, see if life has emerged in the city. After that, I'll be joining a friend for lunch, and then let's see. One of the strange things about Norway is the fact that if you'd like to buy wine or any kind of strong alcohol, you have to go to one of these specialist shops. You can't simply go into a co-op or a supermarket or you name it, Tesco's, you know the supermarkets. You can't go in there. You have to go into a wine shop. They only open set hours, so between the hours of like 9, 10 a.m. to about 4 p.m. or something. I could be wrong, but let's go and have a look. So yeah, slightly wrong. They're open till 6, but basically, as soon as you get to 6, you can't buy alcohol in the city. It becomes almost impossible. The only place you can go after 6 is a bar. Bars in the city are generally open till about 2 a.m., certainly on the weekends. Monday, Tuesday, you're going to struggle. But 6 o'clock, get your alcohol because you can't get it after 6 o'clock. Just to give you some perspective on the prices of beers and wines here, a bottle of San Miguel, which usually costs about £1, £1.50 in the UK, it's about £3.50 here. A bottle of wine, which would normally cost about £6, £7 in the UK, it's about £20 here. So it gives you some sort of perspective. What a lot of Norwegians tend to do is they, when they arrive at the airport, they buy a lot of alcohol duty-free, or they go over the border to Sweden and they buy a lot of alcohol. Because the reality is, the Norwegian government taxes the crap out of alcohol here.
And it was up this road and on this street that you see here. But sadly the wind is just too much. Where I used to live on a part-time basis, the building up there that I pointed to is a place I lived. A little bit strange that I came back just to have a glance at it, but I was walking past and I wanted to have a look and just to see what's changed. But the street has massively changed. The shops are all different, but the buildings are the same.
So Var Frelsers Graveland is actually one of my favourite cemeteries in the world. This is a cemetery where basically all the VIPs of Norway have been buried over the years, and it was literally just around the corner from where I spent a lot of my time. Like I say, I was literally living just over there, and this was on a nice sunny day. It does get sunny in Oslo sometimes. This was a nice place to sort of just go read a book, collect one's thoughts, go for a stroll. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near as massive as, you remember the cemetery in Lviv? You haven't seen my Lviv video on the cemetery. I think it's in 2 of my videos. Top things to do in Lviv, and also an Englishman in Lviv. And this is what stands out about Norwegian cemeteries are the obelisks.
And this is where the wind completely destroys the video once again. I'm actually rambling on about the obelisks here and how I would like, how if I did die, and you guys remember this, I would like an obelisk as my gravestone. Final parting strange impact on the world. As I was walking through this cemetery, and just after I cut the camera off here, a guy with his dog, not from Norway, because I actually went up and spoke to him, decided it was appropriate to let his dog crap all over the graveyard and he didn't want to pick it up. Now that's very unlike Norwegians. When I pointed it out to him, he said, well, in his best broken English, because he certainly wasn't Norwegian, he threatened to attack me. So that was a fun passing encounter as I left the graveyards. Here I find myself walking down the hill and back towards the centre, and this is pretty much where You'll be very familiar with this area, having seen it on news all over the world. I'm showing this archived grainy footage simply to jog your memory and just recall the horror. This was effectively Oslo's 9/11, their 7/7, except unlike 9/11 and 7/7, this terrorist attack was carried out by one man, a deranged man, a guy called Anders Breivik. I know people say we shouldn't remember his name, but the reality is that this man had a devastating impact. Hundreds of families were impacted by him, and we shouldn't forget that.
Back on the 22nd of July, 2011, Norway's biggest terrorist attack happened. It's knocked out the windows, and what's interesting, this is 9 years ago almost now, 8.5, 9 years ago. They haven't repaired the windows, just sort of been left, which is weird given that Norway has so much wealth. You think you would knock that building down. The memorial is just there. I'm going to try to go to the museum. Let's see if that's open. What was kind of terrifying on the day, I was oblivious to it. I was in London. I was in my office. I'd just gone to see some clients in the nearby pub just by the river, and I suddenly got a call, and it was at the time my girlfriend, and she was hysterical, and she's like, don't you care what's happened to me? I'm like, hang on, what's happened to you? It was before the days of decent smartphones. I can't remember what I had. I had like a BlackBerry or something, and I was in a basement bar, so I wasn't getting any reception. But I got enough reception to get the phone call as soon as I got out. And she worked there, and the windows are all smashed out. If she'd been close to the windows, she could have been seriously injured. I have to say I'm grateful that she was okay. I'm grateful that there weren't more people who were killed or certainly harmed. Because imagine the blast, because I think the blast happened over there. It must have been a massive blast because it knocked out all the windows, even knocking out the windows right down there.
These newspaper cuttings were literally put up just before the blast happened, hence they're dated the day of the blast. I'll let my live action personality take over now.
I know they still go on, but this is where this newspaper's offices were based. And every day they put the newspapers out, sort of page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. And they just put them out. And you can see it says Friday, the 22nd of July, 2011. They've kept them in there, which is an interesting one. I don't know if it's appropriate to keep them in there. I think it's time to move on. But, you see? The whole building over there is completely destroyed. Well, they're demolishing it now, that's for sure. But I'm just surprised it's taken so long. It's a good 8.5 years.
So I find myself walking around the building at the back entrance of the site, go directly where I am now. It's up to the front and then to the right over this fence is pretty much where the car bomb detonated. Anders Breivik claimed he started making plans for this terrorist attack way back in 2002. So evidently it took the man 9 years to plan and finance his 2011 attacks. If this was an Al-Qaeda terrorist attack or ISIS terrorist attack, they would be jumping with joy because of the amount of thought and effort that went into this attack. Crazy, totally crazy. Thankfully, the bomb that went off at this site certainly didn't kill the majority of people. The bomb that went off here resulted in 8 deaths, but that pales in comparison to the number of innocents he killed on the Utoya Island, where the Workers' Youth League had a summer camp. He killed 69 that day, and I think his youngest victim was 14 years old. Not only did he take lives, he destroyed families that day. And finally the man was brought to justice, I think in 2016, following his very quick arrest. But the trial obviously took 5 years to bring to court and to sentence. There's a thinking he actually might get out in his lifetime, but I think the Norwegians would be crazy to allow him out. But you never know. There's some very crazy liberal Norwegians who he hated, who would happily let someone out because they've served their time. We shall see.
Well, I wanted to come and basically pay my respects, but the centre is closed. Apparently, I don't know if this means it was supposed to open the 15th December, that was a while ago, but at least in English this is the first quarter of 2020, so if you're coming back, you'll be able to sort of pay your respects at the 22nd of July centre and sort of take it all in. It's a shame, really. It's one of the new things I wanted to see, because I've done the Viking museums, I've done the Tiki museums, I've been to the Edvard Munch galleries. I wanted to sort of see something new.
A quick disclaimer, I'm not suggesting the tragedy should be a tourist attraction, I'm just simply stating I would have liked to have paid my respects.
Finally, as we get to 12 o'clock on a Saturday, people start emerging. It's cold. I think this is the main reason. Basically, it's cold, it's a bit wet, it's a bit dreary. And this is the main shopping street. And right down there is the palace. That's where we're going to head.
And right in front of me is one of the grandest hotels in Oslo. This is the Grand Hotel, rightly named. What I was stating earlier is down there is the palace. I think my speech was a little bit incoherent.
So how did I come to spend 5 years in Oslo? Well, it all started in this bar, John's Bar. I was right at the back there, leaning against the bar, and I saw a very beautiful blonde. 3-second rule, I went straight over, said hello, and then I guess the rest was history for a good while, and then until it went wrong. However, fond memories of this city. And without stumbling across this bar, I probably wouldn't have spent 5 years here. And it's strange to be back after all this time. Oslo University over there. Some nice buildings. Oslo tree, Christmas tree. I think it's about to be taken down. I don't know what this is. My Norwegian is pretty much non-existent. Kind of embarrassing, I spent so long here, and because everyone speaks English, I have to admit my language skills non-existent. One thing you'll notice, unlike Buckingham Palace, and it is very similar to Buckingham Palace, I have to admit, the guards you can get very close to. Buckingham Palace are all behind the fences. Someone's home, the flag's up. At least that's what it means in London. I presume it means the same. This is one of my favourite parks in Oslo. This and Frogner Park, which we're also going to go to. You can see that he's been marching so much that the leaves have created a path. Must be cold. It is. It has to be said, it's a miserable day. It's a day for crows again. You can hear the crows. It seems Everywhere I go lately, there's a lot of crows. Previous years, pigeons would follow me around. Now it's the crows. And then you see the back of the palace grounds. This is greener grass on that side of the fence. But this is a nice park. And then up here, we head up. There's some interesting restaurants and bars and pubs. Okay, change of plan. It is hissing down with rain and it's cold as you like. So I'm gonna go have that long lunch and who knows what will happen.
So what actually happened, it rained for the rest of the day incredibly hard, the light faded very quickly, and I never got to take you to my favourite park in Oslo, and this is my favourite park. This is Frogner Park. This is a beautiful time lapse that someone else put online, and I have to admit I'm using it for the benefit of you guys. I hope they don't mind, and if you get a chance to go to Oslo, this is probably the one park that you should visit out of all of the parks. It's phenomenally beautiful. I love visiting that place every time I had a spare few hours. I didn't live too far from it. And I'm really annoyed that I didn't get to see it again. But as you can see, the weather turned, and sadly, that was pretty much my 24 hours in Oslo. And you know what? I witnessed no problems, because Oslo, a little bit like Stockholm in recent years, has been suffering from some serious problems. What are those problems? I think it would be wrong not to mention it. Oslo is one of the fastest growing cities in Europe. It's not growing because Norwegians are giving birth to other Norwegians. It's growing because of a large migrant influx. Now, a lot of those migrants aren't professionals that you would expect them to be. They are people who are dependent on the state, people sponging the state for as much as they can get, and in return, they are mass raping young women on a scale never before seen before. Stockholm in Sweden is classed as the rape capital of Europe, also the grenade capital of Europe. Oslo isn't that far behind with the statistics. I think it needs to be mentioned, and I think it's a real shame what's happening to this city because of liberal ideas. And I think I'm allowed to say that because I did spend a huge chunk of my life in this city, and I hate to see what's happening to it. I hate to keep reading all of these horror stories that keep happening month after month in Oslo, and it does need to be mentioned.
So that was effectively one day in Oslo. What happened after I went for lunch, very long lunch, camera stopped working. I then continued on, went home, got changed, and then went for an amazing dinner. And now here I am at 6 o'clock in the morning, about to get a plane back to London. Do I recommend Oslo? Of course I do. It's a wonderful city. My recommendation though is come in the summer, come in the spring, come for their big holiday celebrations. In the winter, especially in January, it's way too cold. So come in the summer when you've got more daylight, because effectively in the winter in January it doesn't really get light until from about 9:30 until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it's dark for the rest of the day. And if it's grey clouds, which there was today, it's pretty much dark all day. But yeah, onwards. Oh, exactly the same train journey. I'm at the train station. Train journey to the city. It costs 105, which is about £10, which is about $13-14. And my lips are chapped, my face is all red from the cold. Do I feel like I've been in the Arctic? Yes. Do I feel a little bit worse for wear? Yes. But onwards. I appreciate the fact you've been watching. It's always been a pleasure. Click that like, click that dislike, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks very much.